Hello and welcome to This Car Pod.
I'm Kennan.
I'm Nick, filling in for Filippo, who's celebrating his birthday by taking a bath of marinara sauce, one presumes.
Jesus God. Well, this is off to a good start. Nick is joining us today. Yes, Filippo is away. He's gone. He's on vacation. I don't think he's doing any Italian stereotypical things, not that that is, but Nick is filling in. Now, we know Nick. Nick had the Bentley Arnage, and he got other crazy stuff, including a Lamborghini Murcielago. And we're going to talk about that in a minute because Nick did a manual swap on his Murcielago. He was one of the guinea pigs. One of the first manual swap Murcis in the world is Nick's. We're going to cover that soon. But first, the news. Get it started with Ferrari.
Yes, the Ferrari Amalfi. Now, this is a new model that replaces the Roma. And when I say replaces, I mean that in the gentlest of terms, because boy, does it look the same. And there aren't that many differences. So this car still uses V8 power, which is good, 631 horsepower, which is only 19 horsepower more than the Roma. They made a big deal out of, they lightened the camshafts by 2.9 pounds and things like that. But really, the only major talking point I think with this car is they listened to their customers who were complaining about the capacitive buttons that were in everything, and they brought back an actual physical button for the engine start thing, which Ferrari made a very big deal about. And talk about a niche thing to underline. But we're getting physical buttons back in Ferraris, which I'm a huge proponent of.
Well, the other important thing about this car, I think, is the front end has now been restyled to mirror the front end of the Puro Sangue. The Roma's front end was like a kind of a gaping mouth situation. And this front end, I presume, is going to now be sort of the Ferrari corporate front end. Sort of looks like the 12-cylinder also.
Yeah, at least for maybe the front engine cars, maybe this is what they're going for, and it still looks very nice. I thought the Roma was a very pretty car too, and I think that this looks quite nice. But again, admittedly, it's not that big of a change over the Roma. I think a lot of people will probably confuse the two in showrooms, nonetheless, it still looks nice. I'm glad that they're continuing this V8 two-seater GT line of Ferraris. I think it's a good one for them to have. And allegedly it's going to go on sale at the beginning of 2026, and US deliveries will start sometime just after that. But
what do we think about the fact that Ferrari is just kind of seems to be naming all their cars after Italian places? We have the Portofino, then the Roma, now the Amalfi.
Yes, we had the 458. It started with the 458 Italia. I guess that's where it.
I guess. I mean, they've named cars like the Fiorano was their track.
Yeah,
they've
track.
They've done that before, but now they've really just they're digging deep, like Roma. They're just going for it. They're just going to name cars after Italian things. Now, in years past, this car would have been called the Roma M. Based on Ferrari's previous naming, but I suspect that in order to reach for more customers and get more sales, giving it a new name makes people think it's newer, and so that convention is probably being abandoned, and instead we have a completely new name.
I suppose, yeah, and I'm like you said, it's rare that cars are fully new these days. Like if I view them as facelifts, but manufacturers view them as new, and so I guess that makes sense with the naming. At least it is something Italian.
Well, this is definitely a facelift. This is definitely
the deep face. Yeah, exactly.
The buttons thing is a big deal though, because I am not one to complain about a lack of buttons in cars. I think that too many buttons is an even bigger problem than not enough buttons. However, modern Ferrari models have been off the deep end with buttons, like with touch screen. They're not touch screens. It's like a capacitive touch pad, basically. And like even the engine starter was like a screen that you like tapped and held, and it had gotten a little bit difficult to use. Right.
Well, again, a Ferrari is a sports car. It's about the experience, and like just feeling like you're doing something to start it is part of it. Now, so like I'm glad that they actually did. It's rare also that they make their concessions and listen to their customers, I think, for stuff like this. I mean, it's a small detail, but like nonetheless, I think it does make a difference of how you interact with the car.
I do wonder, is there going to be a decline in values in the screen era Ferrari? You have to assume that if they're doing this for this car, they will then do this for other ones. Yes. In 20 years, are we going to look at the screen era cars, which will only be a few cars, right? It'll be the Roma, the 12-cylinder, the early Puro Sangues. Presumably, they'll facelift that and give it buttons again. And are those going to be kind of like the lesser desired cars, especially if those screens start to break, which one has to assume they might?
Yeah, I think that's if I were going to put money on it, I would say they're going to break. But I do think that there will be a definition of the screen era cars.
I wonder if there'll be like a Porsche design equivalent of like a retrofit to put buttons back on the cars in 20
I
years.
bet it would be cool if you could, but I bet it would be too involved. But
The steering
it will
wheel's
be-
easy. A couple cold ones,
Also,
couple Torx bolts.
Can you imagine the amount of R&D they did to add those like capacitive screens, and now they're just like, no, give us the button we've used since
But based on what we
2005.
hear about Ferrari's profit margins, they can do stuff like this, and they just at some point, the screens are cheaper to make, and they seem more futuristic. But at some point, if the customers are all saying one thing, you got to listen to your customers.
Yep.
Yep.
Even
give us
Ferrari.
I was going to say, this is
Even-
exciting news for old people who have golf memberships and are buying cars out of obligation to buy something more special instead. But not an exciting car.
It is. I
don't know. I think
it's
it's-
a lot of fun.
How
think it's a
excited are
great
you when you see a Roma? Because this is the
so
same
funny.
car.
It's so funny. Everybody thinks the base model version of whatever is not exciting, and I find it to be so funny because, it's still a Ferrari. Like, this car is 630 horsepower out of a twin turbo V8. Like, what are you driving over there? Huh? It's
A
got more
V12.
power than your.
A V12, Doug. That's what I'm driving.
I mean, like, but everybody says this. Like, you get kids on the internet being like, "It's just a Boxster," and it's like, "All right,
Yeah.
what do you got?" "Oh, I'm driving my dad's Acura." "Oh, well, okay, it's just a Boxster then, huh?" All
Hey,
right,
don't
move on
diss
to
the
next.
Acura. All right, moving on. McLaren's.
I want to talk about this. Nick, did you see this? I freaked
Yes.
out about this. Nobody else cared. Maybe no one will care here today. Tom Hartley Jr., who is a noted seller of automobiles. The only noted seller of automobiles aside from cars and bids, I believe. He has got this McLaren collection, and it's one of every special McLaren in the whole world ever, and they're all finished in this goldish bronzish color, and apparently it's like the last of each one, and they basically all of them have delivery miles, and they were all owned by some guy who was part of the McLaren Formula One team. I don't get involved with Formula One. I don't understand any of this, but the point is the guy died. They're all for sale, including the F1. They are all for sale in one collection, and that's pretty cool.
So you have to buy all of them at the same time? You can't just buy one?
I'm curious. Like,
What?
do you want to call Tom Hartley Jr. and find out? Like, I'm curious. Like, if you called and said, "Hey, look, I don't want the Sabre,"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure that will be a common question.
my
Yeah,
guess is that my guess is that the for a while they'll try to sell the collection as a whole, but maybe they'll take some names. Like, obviously the interest will be higher in certain cars, like the P1 and the F1.
Yeah,
et cetera.
one in particular is
Yeah.
really
When's the
interesting.
last time an F1 sold publicly? And
You know, it's interesting that you bring that up. An F1 was available for sale publicly less than a year ago, was it? It was RM had it like private sale and they didn't do an auction. Now there's this, and I've heard rumors that either one or two more will be coming up for sale soon, which is interesting because it had been quite a lull. There had been a long year period where no McLaren F1s had gone on sale.
Do you think it's because they all need service and they like McLaren can only service so many at a time and they've been waiting to like refresh everything and now the people are willing to sell them? Maybe it's something to do with that. I don't know. I mean, they're just rare.
I think that values go to a level where they get out of whack with people's net worths. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's true.
And I legitimately think that's true. Like, I think people bought these cars when they were $2 million, and if that became a $30 million asset and your net worth is 60 million, you start thinking to yourself, this is silly. You know, as cool as this car is, like, my kids don't want this crap and it's time to move this thing on.
Well, and like, and you
In
just
this case, the guy died, and I think literally the kids don't want this crap and it's time to move this thing on.
yeah, it'll be an interesting sale. I mean, I would love to see it move as one collection. Tom Hartley just recently did all of Bernie Ecclestone's Formula One cars, and that sold as one collection. All of them went to one person, which is pretty cool.
Did you see the video for this? Tom Hartley knows how to present some stuff.
Yeah.
He does. He really does.
What is this racetrack? There's a racetrack. It's night. There's the McLaren F1. You got him right there. He's standing there talking about all the cars.
he
They
could have been
teased it
selling
one.
mail order steaks in that video, and I would have been buying. I mean, just great showmanship.
Great showmanship. Tom Hartley's legit. He sells a lot of really legit stuff. In the
does.
States, generally speaking, to sell really, really high-end cars, you go to auction. That's like the normal way to do it. In Europe, there are a couple of dealerships that actually sell these things as cars, and auction is a less common format. There's like several very popular, very, really ultra high-end, and Tom Hartley's one of them. There's a few others. Okay, give us our next news story, please. Yes.
Luca de Montezemelo, the former chairman at Ferrari. Now, big news with him this week. I'll stop yawning. This is important. He is going to McLaren. He recently joined the board of the McLaren Group Holdings, which is the parent company that controls McLaren Automotive and has a vested interest in the Formula One team and things like that. And basically, they're bringing him on to continue the battle against Ferrari and Lamborghini, specifically with road cars. And this is a big deal because what he did for if you like Ferrari in the modern era, he's the man you have to thank for it. Not only did he do great things with the Formula One team, which again, he's not specifically involved with here, but all of the road cars, like from the early 2000s, late 90s and early 2000s, he's responsible for. So he also refined Ferrari's product line. It was very easy to determine where the cars fell. There are so many different McLarens that are currently...
Did he give us the Formula One transmission?
No, Formula One gave us the Formula One transmission.
Did he give us sticky buttons?
No, those existed. Those predated him because.
Did he give us by the answer to all these questions is yes. Did he give us the heinous 612 Scaglietti?
Look, yes, but he also gave us the 550 Maranello. He gave he completely changed the way Ferrari did things. They were building wedge-shaped cars. He took it into the modern era. He proceeded over at Formula One while Michael Schumacher was there. Like he also built the brand. Like he came up with the Ferrari store where you could buy like apparel and stuff. It doesn't sound like a big deal, but how many times do you see Ferrari hats and things like that? It's like he gave people like ownership in the brand, even if he didn't own the car.
What's he been doing the last 10 years?
They fired him. Ferrari got rid of him when they axed him and a bunch of others when they decided to change things around, especially when Formula One, they weren't doing so well in Formula One. He was one of the people they let go, which was very sad. And I think he's bitter about this.
I thought he retired. Didn't he retire?
No, I don't think so.
He retired. He had like 50 years there, and he was ready to go, and it was time to move on. I thought.
He is on the older side. He's 77 years old, so enjoying.
All he needs to do is put a manual transmission in a car over there, and he's going to do pretty well
or make them make not a gazillion models of cars that can you name their current product lineup?
Yeah, if you just put a 7, 6, or a 5 in any order, you're good.
No, we can all name the current product lineup. Here, let me do it for you. Artura.
Right.
That's it, I think.
They still make the GT, I think.
No way. Is there a 750S? I guess there's a 750S. That's it.
They discontinued the 765.
Okay,
he might be thinking of the 675. Nobody knows.
Although I don't feel this is a very exciting news story, I must admit, Luca was an enormous force at Ferrari who did bring Ferrari into the modern era and was responsible for a huge transition from Ferrari being a boutique automaker to a more real one. Although much has happened since he departed from Ferrari. But it is interesting to see him going to the competition, if that's what we call McLaren. Of course, Kennan does not. Kennan does not recognize McLaren as competition.
I do not. No.
They're doing great in F1. I mean, he's got some wind in the sails there.
That's true.
We don't.
But that is true. It's the road cars he is focused on.
They're not making an SUV that looks loosely like a Mazda CX-5.
Well, maybe get ready.
There's some good things going on there.
There are only a few objects in your life that are absolutely essential to your well-being just because of how much time you spend with them. For me, it really comes down to two: my beloved E39 M5 and my mattress. Believe it or not, I'm equally in love with both. That's why I'm genuinely thrilled to have Brooklyn Bedding as a sponsor. They let me pick one of their mattresses to take out on a test drive, and I went with the Aurora Lux cooling mattress with the cloud pillow top. I'm genuinely astonished. It's a total game changer. Before this, I was tossing and turning, waking up hot, sore, and honestly still tired. Now I wake up refreshed after a night of cool, tranquil sleep. It's wild, and I am definitely not turning back. Now, I'm a side sleeper, so I need something soft enough for my shoulder, but still firm enough to keep my back happy. This thing nailed it. No more lower back pain, no overheating. Emily's sleeping better too, dreaming of track days in her E90 M3 CRT, which is really saying something. Brooklyn Bedding has been doing this for over 25 years. Top tier comfort and quality without the ridiculous luxury price tag. Every mattress is custom made by master craftsmen at their facility in Arizona, and they ship for free anywhere in the US. Plus, you've got up to 120 nights to sleep on it, and if it's not for you, they will help you return it and swap it for something better. So if you don't hug your mattress every night like I do, it's time to upgrade. Go to brooklynbedding.com and use our promo code CARS at checkout to get 30% off site-wide. This offer is not available anywhere else. You have to use our promo code on the very last page of checkout to get this discount. That's brooklynbedding.com and use our promo code CARS for 30% off site-wide. brooklynbedding.com, with the promo code CARS.
Time to move on to the next news story that's actually interesting, and that is, Nick, tell us what happened to this silver Ferrari
ouchie. F40, we're all fans. I think all of us identify as an iconic car that imprinted us as a youth.
Nope. No.
No, not Doug. Doug's more of a Carrera GT guy. But this one, owned by Supercar Ron, an internet personality of sorts who's got a pretty impressive collection. It was being driven by his photographer pretty late at night, as you can see in the picture, and got sideswiped by a fuel truck, like a semi-truck, basically. And the trucker left the accident, as one does when you hit a multi-million-dollar car. And they put out an alert basically saying, hey, there's a couple dash cams. We didn't get the plates, but like it kind of looks like this truck. And then a few people found, like a quarter mile down the road, there was a truck pulled over, but they didn't have the plates. So they put out like a bulletin basically saying like anyone who has dash cam footage was in Salt Lake at this time, send in your stuff. Turns out they found the truck, the trucker, and got the insurance information. The wheel is blown out, the door, the rear quarter, it's going to need a lot of work. I doubt it's salvaged, especially when you think of the Gas Monkey car and some cars that have been much worse. But it's not going to buff out. That's for sure.
Right.
Can I ask a question that I think is on everyone's mind?
Sure.
This was in Salt Lake late at night. Was Stradman involved?
Pizza delivery. It was actually the fuel truck was full of marinara sauce looking for Filippo.
So they found the guy, and Supercar Ron is going to be made whole by J&L Trucking Inc. or something like that.
Oh yeah, I can't imagine that insurance claim and trying to declare the value of it. I mean, I guess the only thing he is going for it is he bought it fairly recently, so the comp or the value of what he paid shouldn't be that different.
Yeah, if he goes after a diminished value claim, I'd be curious to know what the backstory is with this F40. Obviously, it's a non-standard color. It's got a lot of modifications. Was it a salvage car before, is my question. Like
Probably.
Most of the F40s that look like this have not had great histories, to be honest. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of curious. And now this one doesn't. Even if it did before, now it doesn't.
Now it finally fits. It's in its final form now.
Surprised they were so public about it. Of course, we all know about a yellow Carrera GT owner here in Southern California who covered up his accident. It's nice that they were public about it, because I think transparency with your audience is a big deal. But that's an expensive thing to be public about it. And if they go back and forth on diminished value, it could be a long fight with an insurer.
The other good news out of the story, besides them finding the culprit, was those wheels have been destroyed, so he now has an opportunity to put stock wheels back on.
I'm not going to comment on that. I consider Supercar Ron a friend after he let me drive his Valkyrie, which was amazing. The wheels on this F40, it was more than just like, I'm pissing off purists. It was Okay, move on to our next news story. Please, God, give us an Acura TLX. This is Mercedes-Benz. I'm told. Here's the thing. Mercedes-Benz some guy from Mercedes-Benz did an interview this week. Did you see this, Kennan?
I did.
Some guy from Mercedes-Benz did an interview this week, and they basically said, and by some guy, I mean the chief executive of AMG. And he said, look, we heard you. We feel your pain. We understand what you want. We're done with the four-cylinder. And he specifically said, we believe the four-cylinder is the greatest performing engine and blah, blah, the technology, tour de force. He used all these terms. But he admitted that they were going to switch back to the V8 because they've heard the market loud and clear. I drove that C63 with the four-cylinder. Wasn't good.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, I mean,
did you drive it when I had it?
I did not drive it when you had it, but I didn't want to. And I think it's because it's just not appealing. Like, I give the C63 in particular compared to the M3 is all about V8. It's about the motor.
Yep.
And so I'm glad they are. It's rare that Mercedes-Benz admits they've made a mistake. So, but I'm glad they're listening to the customers and they're going back to testing V8s, which is exactly what this picture is of here. Although it looks like maybe a Kia Stinger, I can't tell. Something along those lines. But they are testing V8s.
Coming back to the V8. We're back, baby. Maybe we're going back to the old days when they did like V6, then V8, then V10, and remember that? And there was this like crazy escalation, and we all thought the world was going to end.
The famed Mercedes V10, definitely something I remember.
Well, you're too young for this, but Nick and I will regale you. Okay, there was a time I'll never forget this. Mercedes, came out with the supercharged V8 and the E55.
I remember
and that was
the
a
E55.
massive shock to the world because it was way more power than anything before. And then BMW came out with a V10.
I
and
remember.
you really legitimately thought that there was a possibility that the next one of these cars was going to have a V12. Like, it was truly on our minds as enthusiasts.
And they
then
were putting that V12 by turbo into a lot of cars, like the CL65. I saw the other day one on the road, and it's like, I can't imagine how much that guy has spent keeping that roadworthy. But at the same time,
that's true.
how cool.
Then BMW comes out with that V10, and then that same year, Benz comes out with a twin turbo V12. And it's like, oh my God, where is this going to end? And the answer, we didn't know it at the time, but the answer is it was ending right there.
That was the end. Yeah.
Well, 2 years ago, we were talking about every car was getting EV'd and smaller displacement. Now we're back to the good old days of make it bigger, make it bigger.
How funny, right? Like when this podcast started, almost all of our early news stories, you remember this, Kennan, were about how EVs were taking over. And it was this EV or that EV or whatever.
They were dark days.
And here we are. Now, last week, to be clear, we covered Mercedes coming out with that 1,300 horsepower thing.
Electric. Well, yeah, and mine, that thing is still... Yeah,
so they're still doing it.
They're still doing it, but at least we know that a V8 will exist in the Mercedes-Benz lineup somewhere. Praise the Lord.
As it belongs.
Hell yeah, brother.
As it belongs. Damn right. Mercedes-Benz was always famous for their big engine muscle cars, and luxury muscle cars. It's going to take a lot for them to go away from them.
Yes, muscle cars that have a funny European accent, so that's what they have. But lovely. Next news story.
All right, what else? What else you got for us?
Speaking of muscle cars.
Yeah, and the same news story, but just for Stellantis. Much like the V8s are coming back, a spokesperson said SRT is being relaunched, and I have some notes on that, that they're revitalizing the brand. They're super excited, expect more big displacement, high horsepower cars. I'm a little confused because I went on their website. They still sell SRT Durangos. So I don't know how it's coming back if it never went away in the first place, but I guess even they forgot about the Durango. It's that unmemorable. But nonetheless, they're also walking back EVs a little bit. They're putting actual gas engines in cars, and they're bringing back the SRT nameplate, presumably to more cars beyond the Durango, which is all good news for enthusiasts.
What a crazy thing. Nobody ever writes books about the auto industry, but I would love to know what's going on inside the head offices of these automakers who made all these switches to EV and went all this EV direction, and then Trump comes in, and then you have the market wants EVs kind of fall off, and then the tariff thing happens, and the last couple of years must be just a whipsaw of insanity in the car business.
I'm sure they're all throwing each other under the bus. The people that get fired because they got pinned with the blame just go over to the other automaker, get hired, and be like, "Oh yeah, that wasn't me, that was the other guy," and just repeat the same thing over and over.
It's hard to even not make the mistake. Like coming out with the EV charger seemed like the right move 2 years ago because that's where the market seemed like it was going, and now. How could we have ever predicted that the whole world would kind of upend itself? And now here we are with
this is great
SRT.
news because Dodge/Stellantis has been struggling, but if there's one thing they can do, they can put a ridiculously large engine in a car that doesn't have a lot of other benefits or features and do well by it. So
that's exactly right. They can do that.
Yeah.
They can do that. That's right. Well, then they're gonna. I'm excited to see what they come up with. My suggestion to them, and I'm not sure where you guys stand on this, but my suggestion to them would be bring back the Challenger just exactly as it was. Don't do anything differently.
Add a convertible option.
I kind of have a question. Do you think they're going to bring back the Viper?
Oh,
if they're building a new facility to build these cars and they're going to continue, if they're like, well, we can build engines now that are really big, why not build another V10,
The problem with the Viper is I think they've gotten burned on the Viper. They brought it back a few times, and in every case, it never really was successful despite purported market demand. But it wouldn't surprise me if they bring back the Viper. Another thing is, they did all these last call edition. I mean, that was the last 2 years has been the last call of the Charger and Challenger Hellcat. What?
The next edition is going to be called the Just Kidding.
Yeah, I mean, like if they're bringing SRT back, they can't. Presumably, they have to have about match the power of the previous cars, right? Like they can't diminish what.
No.
So last call. Well, yeah, just kidding.
again.
Maybe that'll be interesting. That'll be interesting.
When I'm not driving during the summer, I'm at the pool, French 75 in hand. And when it's time to swap the driver's seat for a chaise lounge, I'm wearing Chubbies. Their lined swim trunks are absolutely dialed. Quick drying fabric, stretchy in all the right places, and best of all, a built-in boxer brief that keeps everything in place without this swampy mess drama. I wore a pair last weekend that I ended up wearing all day, swimming, grilling, and yes, even behind the wheel of my M5 on the way to the pool party. They passed every test, and they're the only swim trunks I've ever owned that are able to do this comfortably. And once the sun dips, I throw on their everywhere shorts, which are so comfy, it honestly feels like a cheat code. They look clean enough for dinner, but they feel like you never left the pool. If your legs have been stuck in jeans all winter, set them free. Chubbies has everything you need to make the most of summer, from the pool to the pavement. Whether you're suiting up for cannonballs, cookouts, or casual Fridays, Chubbies has you covered. For a limited time, Chubbies is offering our audience 20% off your order with the code CARS at chubbyshorts.com. That's code CARS, C-A-R-S, at chubbies, C-H-U-B-B-I-E-S shorts.com. Support our show and let them know we sent you. Summer is here. Dress like it with Chubbies.
Okay, give us our next news story, please.
Oh, Bentley. Nick, you're a
Nick,
Bentley man.
I'm donning my Bentley regalia, including the most ugly back of a shirt you'll ever see for the viewers.
He has a Union Jack across the top of his shoulders for those who are listening on the audio.
As an Arnage owner, a Bentley owner myself, I can't tell the difference between these four logos dating back
Okay,
to
well, you know what?
the 1800s.
I have to say, I studied the logos carefully, and I got to tell you, the newest one has actually some pretty significant differences. So if you look at the old one, first off, there's a little flutter of wings below the B in all the previous ones, and they got rid of that. So
There's no tail on the bird anymore. It's just the wings.
Just the wings. The tail is gone. And in addition to that, the wings are not like kind of spread out individually. They're just make a triangle. And you know what I realized looking at this? It looks a lot like the Genesis logo. If you pull up the Genesis logo, I'm like astonished by actually how similar it is, considering they would never want anybody to mistake the Genesis logo with the Bentley logo.
But vice versa, Genesis would love that. So
they would. Like, it's just a triangle. The wings are in the triangle shape. There's the black badge in the center. Like, it looks kind of Genesis-y, if I'm being totally, much more so than the previous logo.
Right. Now, admittedly, the cars they are on will not look the same.
Maybe that Genesis G90 is pretty Bentley looking. Nick has confused a few G90s.
It's got the mesh grille just like my Arnage.
I'll pull it up for you.
Yeah, please, because I don't know their lineup. But yeah, no, it's taking cues from certain.
If you look at that car and you might think to yourself, oh, that's a Bentley, and it's not a Bentley. It's a Genesis G90.
Nick was fooled.
Yeah, I mean, it feels on one hand like just a lame exercise to do something new, but I'm surprised they just kept the wings all together. I guess like they have this sort of like decanter crystal glass kind of vibe to them, but I just make it the big B.
Nick, it's the flying B. That's like the thing.
No, I know, but like if you look at the inlays, like they've kind of now made it like diamond stitched almost. But I don't know.
I don't disagree. I like this one the most personally.
Yeah.
The one
that one is so 70s.
What's a bigger
like
change? The Roma to the Amalfi Coast Ferrari, or these four? I mean, they're all like so iterative.
If you compare the original one at the bottom to the new one, it is a pretty substantial difference. Bentley has modernized. They are in the modern age, and they are telling you that they're not going to take no crap anymore like they used to. That's what they're saying to you.
Take that, Rolls-Royce.
Take that, Rolls-Royce, you Ferdinand Piech. All right, give us our next news story.
That's the end of the news.
That's the end of the news. The news is over. Nick, did you enjoy the news segment?
I learned some stuff.
That's great.
Yeah. That's why I'm here, to learn stuff.
That's great. All right. Well, now it's time to move on to the Talk Cars segment. The Talk Cars segment is brought to you by the GMC Sierra EV. Oh, no, wait. This is a Silverado EV. Same thing. Neither of them selling. The Chevy Silverado EV. If you want to go 800 miles between fill-ups, the Silverado EV is the truck, and it only weighs 9,000 pounds and costs $175,000. Nick, tell us about that. Do you think I did a good job shilling for the Silverado EV?
Yeah, I got nothing to add to that
Beautiful.
one.
Really sold it.
Thank you. Nick, tell us about your Lamborghini Murcielago.
Oh, it's you famously predicted amongst our friend group that when I shipped it out, that you would be back from Nantucket before I ever got the car back.
Yep.
As your video shows here, you are not in the office, so I win.
I know your swapper folks did a great job.
It was like under a month, but very nerve-wracking procedure, right? You're sending a car to a stranger almost 2,000 miles away, hoping they know what they're doing. The car's gone for a while.
The reputation that some of these places, not the one that you chose, but some of these places have been sketchy beyond even discussion or belief.
I did 6 months of due diligence and spoke to the guy, John, at Machina Motorworks, like literally every day. Probably have spent hours on the phone with him. And I was still just absolutely terrified the entire time. But I had it back. It's 500 miles under it. We did a 200-mile drive last weekend for our good friend Braden's birthday. Funny enough, on this drive, it was a very hot day. We lost 3 cars on this drive out of 20.
We lost 2. 2 broke down and had to...
Okay, one just broke down for an hour and then eventually got started again.
And it was a German car. It was a GT3 RS that had to be bump started.
The GT3 RS was bump started. Z06 blew a thermostat and spewed coolant everywhere. And then we think the Subi lost a head gasket. So it was a tough drive. Like people were pushing it. And funny enough, Will and his M3 was like, my oil was overheating, but I figured if everyone else is okay, I was too. And then, like, sure enough, 2 cars died at the top of that run. So it was an aggressive drive. Let's put it that way.
We've gone on aggressive drives before, and the Murci has
always performed
warned
well.
you to slow down.
The oil light comes on with some regularity, just saying, "Hey, it's getting a little hot."
But it gets there. We back out of it. The car's always never stranded you. Yeah.
And now I can downshift with my hands. I guess the paddles are with my hands. With my left foot, I can downshift. Regardless, the swap's been going great. Like, it is such a relief to get it back, to know that it's performing well. Little things like yes, it is way more enjoyable around city, but I took it to Floor and Decor the other day. I took it to Sprouts, which is a grocery store. Like, I can now pull into parking spots without eager lurching into other cars. Yeah. Or like trying to inch into my garage is no longer quite as terrifying. Same with coming down here for this podcast. Like, I always worry about stop and go traffic and burning my eager clutch. And I was like, you know what? I don't care. I can modulate the clutch on my own.
Yep.
So
exactly.
It's like opening this whole new world where I'm driving it everywhere all of the time.
So in a way, it's actually made it more practical for you.
It's made it more
use.
practical, yes. And funny enough, so they gave me the box with all the eager parts. And I sent it to John. I'm like, oh, this thing is trash. I'm going to throw it away. And he's like, no joke. People will pay 11 grand just for the eager actuator alone. You could sell the eager parts for 20 grand. If someone's in a pinch trying to rebuild their eager, you can't buy the OE parts. Like, these are unobtainium. So
it's the best.
So are you using this podcast to shill for the fact that you have these parts?
Slide into the DMs if you.
There he is.
Drop a DM to Nick over on Instagram if you want e-gear parts.
$10,999 one day special.
Nick, you have no regrets, obviously, about doing this.
No, absolutely no regrets. However, the community, and I'll use that term loosely, of people in like the Murci world that do swaps. I've had some other people that offer this conversion, giving their unsolicited feedback, sometimes solicited. There are multiple options out there that I think are great. I also spoke to Royalty in Vegas, and they run like a really quality operation. But like, everyone, because it's so new, is like nitpicking, like, oh, you don't have the shift paddle covers. And like, so it's still like a little like stressful.
Well,
but
one of the things that we have learned, and we discussed, we've never talked about on the podcast, is that every single shop badmouths every single other shop, always. I've never had an experience where I went to any shop and said, hey, what do you think of these guys? And they were like, oh, they're great. It's always like, oh, he's a hack. I'm the only one who does it right. So...
And that's definitely the case here.
Any shop's word on any other shop.
They're fairly collegial, but I feel like 500 miles under my belt, including some hard driving, really makes me feel good. Obviously, the long-term viability means. I want
to talk about this because this is, I think, a real. I got a Lambo V12, and I'm curious about this because obviously anybody with these cars is. If they don't have a Murci, if they got a Countach or Diablo or an Aventador, they've thought about, like, the Murci's been in their heads, and I've thought about Murci. One of the things that's held me back, I always wanted a stick. Stick values were way higher, way higher. What do we think is going to happen now? I mean, here you are driving around, like, trying to sell your e-gear parts. Like, you don't even care. You're, like, done. You're not even considering the concept of ever going back. Like, I feel that the Ferrari market has been upset completely for cars that are swappable. I wonder what happens to the manual Murci market. Like, here we are. Like, this is happening. You've done 500 miles, half of which have been like hard miles. Like, how many miles is it going to take before people think, hey, this is a real option? And if you're a serious driver, do you care that it was installed by Lamborghini or it was installed by someone else as long as it was installed?
My theory is, I mean, they'll always command a premium as a factory car, I think, as just being collectible. But I think that they're going to lose value tremendously. Because I think Lamborghini people are less
But
precious
you're talking about
the OEs.
the factory manual converted Mercy, factory manual Mercies, yes. Because I think that Lamborghini people tend to be less sensitive to modifications. They tend to drive their cars more than Ferrari owners do. And I think that's, I mean, the only reason that those cars are worth so much money is because they made so few of them relative to the Mercy, and the market has thus pumped tons of money.
Well, if you're paying $800,000-900,000 for an LP640 that was OE manual or $1 million plus, you're not going to want to drive it because it's so valuable. So I'd rather have a car I could beat on.
I hate to say it, but if you got an OE stick LP640, the time to sell that car is today. Like, ultimately, this is probably market peak. Once the market realizes that this has happened, and I'm not just talking from nowhere here, we've seen it with other cars. Stick 575s. Now, hasn't been really as true as stick 599s because there's so few factory sticks. But stick 575s, stick 430s, those markets went absolute peak crazy, and then so many manual conversions showed up that those markets have either flattened or softened in some cases. And like you said, Kennan, the Ferrari community is even more obsessive with, it's a factory. Whenever the stick Murcis come up for sale, they always have real miles on them. These are cars people want to drive, to use, to enjoy. And I have a suspicion people are just going to want to do the swaps so they can drive the car and originality be damned. I'll tell you this, as a guy who's in this world potentially and interested in cars like this, I probably wouldn't consider a factory stick anymore. I don't really see the point of paying another $150,000 when I can get a swap done for whatever it costs, 30 grand, 40 grand.
Yeah, I totally agree. But Nick, I also have to say, having watched Nick drive this car quite a bit recently, I've never seen him happier. Like, he is smiling ear to ear driving the car. It just transforms the experience.
I want to tell you something. This is one of my greatest disappointments. I was this close to getting Nick into a Diablo. I'm not exaggerating. I was this close. He drove one. He sent a text to our group chat. He said, I'm officially searching for a Diablo. I'm on the hunt for Diablo. I was this close to getting a Diablo. I've been begging every person I know who has the money to get a Countach or Diablo since I bought my car, because I'm the only one in San Diego with a car like this. And I was this close on Nick. And now it's over. I can't imagine it's going to happen now.
No, I can't imagine.
Because
it right
having a manual Murci isn't enough for Doug, who wanted a Diablo.
Well, I'd have to sell the Murci to get the Diablo, and I couldn't sell the Murci right now. It's too fun.
I want someone in the vintage game. I like that he's got a manual Murci, but I want someone the Countach is not as much of a headache as people think if it's properly sorted. And the Murci's cool as hell, but I think a Diablo would just be so baller.
Yeah. Well, the whole swap, I'm so glad it's done. The other thing it makes me think is like, I was such an eager apologetic person for a long time of like, the next generation won't know how to drive a manual, and it's actually suited for this, kind of like your insane argument about the C63 Black Series should be an auto. Like, I was trying to make these like crazy distortion loops, but like now I'm at the point where I think E-Gear was a bigger scandal to VAG than Dieselgate. Like, it should have never happened. The car is so well suited for a manual transmission. You got this V12, it's raw, it's analog, it's over the top. Like, you need to have this like chrome ball in your hands, just clacking around.
Sure, but don't forget at the time when it came out, the demand was everybody wanted the F1 style.
They needed an auto. And I got to tell you, Nick, one thing that you got to keep in mind about E-Gear, I assume you haven't driven a Revuelto, but like ultimately, an E-Gear auto is still more exciting than a PDK. And so like at the end of the day, I agree with you. Like, obviously the shifting is more exciting, and the market feels that way too, greatly, right? But the people wanted autos, and if I had to choose between E-Gear and PDK for a Murci with so much personality and so much fight, like I want E-Gear.
That car in particular, I feel like is just, the swap was the way to go. So I'm pretty pumped on that.
What can we talk about Sean for a second? Sean, our lovely producer, he's over there somewhere. He's
squirming right now. You can't see him.
God knows. Anyway, he's got a tip frog, which is our terminology.
Better known as the Ferrari 360.
Ferrari 360 with an automatic transmission. What do you think he should do? What do you think people should do now that you've done this?
Funny enough, on that drive, there was a blue 360 Challenge Stradale, and this dude was ripping. He drove really aggressively.
Oh, tip?
Yeah, the
Yes.
only way they came, yeah.
Well,
But,
people have done swaps.
That's true. That's true.
Look at that.
But
360?
do you think do you think? Oh yeah, there it is.
360.
Yeah, there it is. There's two 360s. You got a red one and a green one there.
No, I think it's two frogs. Not sure.
Corporate says it's the same picture. If it were
So-
how to spend your own money, the delta between an OE car and a swap car, the math is a little different. So let's put that out of the equation here and just say, from a driving experience, I will say Sean did the Challenge Stradale TCU tune. That was an absolute game changer. Like, you got to do that at a minimum. If I were him, and or even on the Murcis, like, if you need a new clutch anyways, and your engine's going to come out and you're going to be dumping the money into it, that's the time to do it. Or a lot of Murcis do actually have eager faults, hence why you could sell the actuators for 11 grand. So if you're having any trans issues at all, and it's like, okay, they got to take the trans out and tinker with it, while you're in there, you might as well convert it to a
Might as well switch to a manual. What is the cost to do it? What is the retail cost to do it? If Kennan wanted to go and swap his Murci right now, what would it cost?
It's very early days, and I think some of the early movers are charging a premium to recoup their R&D. Like Machina spent 2+ years figuring theirs out. The kits, I think people are advertising this, and it's safe to share. I'll give a range and say it's anywhere from $40K on the low end to I was quoted as high as $100,000 on the high end. That included a valve adjustment, which is like a $30,000 service. So let's say 40 to 70 is probably the range. That is an engine out. That is all that. That does not include motor mounts, which you need to do. That's another $900. That does not include a clutch. You can reuse your clutch. It's the same clutch, but if you want a new clutch, it's about $7,000 just for the physical hardware. So
now, and that seems like a lot, obviously, but a tip
It's insane.
Murci, a tip Murci is probably in today's market probably a 175 to 225 car average, right?
for a 580, yeah. For a 640, maybe more like 250 to 300.
Okay, so 175, 225 for a 580, and stick early Murcis are coming up. They sell for what, 350 to 450 price, somewhere in there, depending on miles and that kind of thing.
I think you're a little low on all of those estimates, but sure.
You think I'm
But
low on the
as an owner.
225. Says the owner.
Add about 50 to each one of those numbers, but yeah, sure, whatever.
I can buy a Murci for 175.
Well, yeah,
That's
I
one
mean,
we sold.
if it's on jack stands and has a lien against it by a payday loan company, maybe.
We
What did that
sold
red one
this
sell for? What did
580
that red
for
one sell for? What did that sell for?
186 and
Okay.
So with
Alright,
fees
so-
and shipping, it's 200.
with fees and shipping, of course.
Yeah, but 175,
Yeah,
sure, yeah.
taxes and your first service
This
in there,
one-
and you
this
got
one
to
was
factor
bid-
in tires, you know?
You do, actually. A lot of these have very old tires.
Anyway, so regardless, so you're probably in the car. Minimum, you're probably in the car if you wanted to swap one at like 240, something like that.
Something.
But it's still a significant, it's significantly cheaper than buying an OE stick.
I disagree with you all that I think that the OE manuals will drop in price a ton. I think they'll stop appreciating at the rate they have. But if you have a low mile unicorn, it's going to continue to be incredibly desirable.
sure.
Maybe for the miled up, rougher ones.
A manual
yes.
SV, sure. But I think I think for the ones that already are,
Even the sub 10,000 mile, like cream puff examples, I think will be, because those guys aren't buying it to drive it, they're buying it to keep it pristine.
Although I truly have noticed that when stick Murcis come up, OE stick Murcis come up, they always seem to have miles on them. It's the one in your picture there, Kennan, actually is an exception. That was a low mile car.
4,500 miles on that one.
But typically, when stick Murcis come up for sale, they seem to have miles on them, like 20, 30, even 40,000 miles, not uncommon in a stick Murci.
It'll be interesting. I originally wanted to sell mine on the site to set the first comp for what a swap car would do, but I got it back. I'm like, I can't do it. I want to enjoy it more.
money. I mean, you're in your car. I think you would do okay if you wanted to do
I
it.
would do okay financially, but then I would have a large hole in my heart, and I'm not sure I want to replace it with a Diablo. So
The hole in your heart would be filled with a Diablo, dude. You get a Monterey edition.
well, I'm gonna go speak to Ed Bullion here, hopefully in a couple weeks, and see what happens. You know.
Okay,
He's
we'll
got
leave that
2
one open.
SVs. I think that's one too many. So
This episode is brought to you by Ava. Cars and good credit score go hand in hand. Having good credit can be the difference between being able to afford the car your enthusiast heart desires or not, which is where Ava comes in, helping you build credit fast. Ava is a credit building app that makes it super simple to improve your credit fast, so you can get better rates on loans, pay off debt faster, and keep more money in your pocket. Instead of waiting months for a secured card, Ava is instantaneous. It's simple, affordable, and it really works. Most members see their credit go up in less than a week. Hello, F40. Ava reports your on-time payments to all major credit bureaus every day to help you build positive credit history quickly. The longer you stick with Ava, the higher your score can go. Joining Ava gives you access to all of Ava's credit building tools, starting at just $6 per month. There's no credit check, no interest, and no fees. Ava is the highest rated credit building app with thousands of 5-star reviews. It's the only credit building app rated excellent on Trustpilot and an A+ by the Better Business Bureau. Don't let your credit hold you back another day. Grow your credit score fast with Ava. Download the Ava app, spelled AVA, today. And when you join using my promo code CARPOD, you'll get your first month free. This offer is only for my listeners. Get the Ava app and use promo code CARPOD, C-A-R-P-O-D, to get your first month free. That's promo code CARPOD. Thanks to Ava, and now go get yourself good credit.
On the subject of Nick, Kennan, for some reason you drove around in Nick's Bentley Arnage. Tell us about it.
Yes. Now, Nick was out of town last week. He was had a nice vacation with his family. And while he was gone, he lent me his garage to do a full paint correction on the M5. So I stripped it, compounded it, polished it, did 2 coats of ceramic coating. I really went full Kennan insane on detailing the car. But that takes a lot of time, and you can't move it or drive it while you're doing it. And I was doing it, I didn't take time off. I was doing it in the afternoons and evenings after work. And so Nick lent me his Arnage because I've always wanted to drive an Arnage T. It's one of my favorite Bentleys ever. And so I was grateful to get the chance to drive it around. But in driving it around, I learned a couple of things about the car. Now, Nick's admittedly is not the nicest example.
No.
I think we could say it's
pretty
a
nice.
hoopty.
It's pretty nice.
You've done a good job making it substantially nicer. I will say that. And your series on the Cars and Biz YouTube channel is fantastic. That said, it is shocking to me that car's competition, like not yours specifically, but they produced that car through 07 and beyond, was the Phantom. The Phantom is in a completely different league in terms of how nice it is.
yeah.
Not even close. Like the Arnage is charming. The Phantom is impressive still 20 years later. But the thing that shocked me more than that, because I did like driving and I loved looking back at it, it's such a good looking car, is the amount of hatred from strangers that car garnered. I have never experienced anything like it. I came close with the WRX STI that I drove around in too. But like in the part of town that like I live in, I drove it around. I think people must have, I don't know if it's that they just look at it and assume generational wealth and they hate that or what. But I have never, and I drove it normally, just cruising. I didn't speed. I was very courteous. I let people in. I have never been flipped off, yelled at, scowled at, like had people dive to like walk in front of the car when it's completely unnecessary to do so more times than any other car.
So wild.
And people just, the abject hatred I felt driving around in it was crazy. And I don't know why, because like to me, to car enthusiasts, I see things go like, damn, that thing is so cool. It looks like someone's here to fire your dad, in Doug's words. But to strangers, at least in this part of town, it was not well received, and I could not give the keys back soon enough. And now I'm in my sedate soul for BMW. Nobody notices me. But that's the first time I've ever actually been in any car that I've driven around where people like actually hated it. I've had people like get pretty excited about a number of other cars. Like your Murci, people freak out in a very positive way. It's like, whoa, it's so cool. But even like just normies. But I was stunned. I really was surprised people hated it so much.
Doug, I got a story for you that I'm not sure you're aware of. Kennan, while he was doing this insane detailing session, he taped every seam and spent literally like 7 days
7
working
days,
on it.
7 nights.
He moved the Murci out of the garage so that he didn't get detailing dust on it.
It's being courteous.
And courteous.
To you.
He parked it in front of my neighbors who sleep with all their windows open.
I parked it at the bottom of your driveway.
They parked it near the neighbors who sleep with their windows open, 2 medical doctors that work the morning shift. He cold starts it at midnight.
Well,
And speaking of getting hatred, the one doctor comes out and just goes, "What are you doing?" and yells at poor old Kennan.
Well, I did. Well, no, the thing was, I realized the car was loud, so I quickly pulled it in the garage. But then I turned it off, and I forgot that I left the front lift up. which is you're not supposed to do on a Murci for a long period of time. It's not supposed to sit lifted. And I didn't want to scrape the front. I'm just terrified of this car. It's also impossible to see out of. It's wide and his garage is more narrow than I would thought. I was very afraid. So I had to start it again. I had to do it twice.
On my car, you can just turn it to accessories and do the lift. I don't know if that's true.
I tried that.
It's
Did not
hydraulic.
work.
I think you got to have the pressure.
You have to have it. It's a Murci, so you got to have it running. But
My car's
I felt
hydraulic.
very bad, and admittedly, I apologize to them.
Kennan had a rough week between all the
I also-
detailing and all the hate.
It was a really rough day. I had a really long day where every single thing seemed to go wrong, and all I wanted to do was work on my car and listen to a podcast. And I just lost track of time, and I felt really bad. But immediately, then I set an alarm. I left at 9:30 the following night.
Yeah.
And I apologized to your doctor friend. And then
That's all water under the bridge. I am sorry you didn't get to enjoy it more for what it is. It is such a unique and fun driving experience. Funny enough now, because of that drive, our friend Braden is driving it while his STI gets his head gasket repaired. So
No kidding.
I'm just passing the keys around.
The Arnage.
Hey, he's 27 now, all right? So that's like a rite of passage.
It's
Your latter 20s, you drive an Arnage.
the brotherhood of the traveling Bentley.
If anyone else would like to borrow it, I'm not putting it on Turo. I actually kind of want to put it on Uber but like drive people around for a day just to get the reactions, but I don't have that kind of time. So
Well, I'm sorry that it wasn't everything you expected, Kennan. Nick has done some interesting things in his life with cars. and the most interesting thing to me, he's not because he's been trying to, but he's owned two cars that I've always wanted to own, which were the yellow Range Rover. No, I didn't want a yellow one, but I always wanted a P38 and the Arnage T. And both of his experiences have convinced me that I have absolutely no interest in owning either of those cars ever. And part of it's because I was able to get out some of my jollies by actually using his cars. It's not because I hated them. I actually liked, especially the Bentley, I actually liked it. But I realized, and this is one of the reasons I'm off cars, like none of these cars are ever really all that, they never really deliver what you're really hoping they will. You know?
Well, the F40 is pretty good. But yeah, I think that...
Well, that's kind of my point. I think if you could get to I think it's only worth, and I've made this point, I would be on cars again if I could go to that level, but I think it's only worth doing this if it's something really, really, to me anyway, if it's something really, really special. Because going after a P38, it scratches an itch for me, it would scratch an itch for about 4 hours, and then I'd be stuck with a P38.
Yeah, I agree with all that. Like the reward is much higher, but on a $18,000 Bentley or a $7,000 P38, the risk is a lot lower, right? I can give my keys to a 27-year-old and say, have fun, let me know if anything breaks. I don't care. Versus an F40, you're obviously not having that level.
Yeah,
of
that's definitely true. For me, it ended up being, it's just started to become a function of time. I simply don't want to, because I end up spending about the same amount of time on the car, whether it costs $1 million or $20,000, and I just don't care to. The A-Class and the RS2 were big lessons for me.
Before we move on to our market report segment, let me tell you about our friends at CarEdge and how they can help you when you're buying a car.
Yeah, that's a father-son duo, right?
That's exactly right, Nick. Now, one of the biggest challenges when buying a car is knowing if you're actually getting a good deal. And the key to that, it's not the MSRP or the dealer's advertised price. For new cars, it's the invoice price, what the dealer actually paid for the car. And for used cars, it's understanding the market conditions. That's what CarEdge gives you access to 100% free. Just head to caredge.com/carsandbids, all one word. Plug in the car you're shopping for and get real invoice pricing, market trends, and insights. It puts you in control. No more guessing. No more wondering if you're being upsold. It's like showing up to the dealership with insider knowledge. And we're going to pull a car in real time. So what car? Oh my God, it's Doug. What car do you think we should pull, Nick?
I'm in the market. Let's
You're Ford man?
Yeah, I want some American muscle here. Let's do a Mustang.
Oh, hell yeah, brother. All right, we'll put in Emily's email address there. All right, let's see what it pulls up. So you click get invoice pricing and gives you all kinds of stuff. So it gives you the MSRP range, there's the dealer invoice range, and the target discount.
Nice.
It also goes over a bunch of different stuff. Like, well, it's nice to have some pictures of the car, but it also gives you breaks it down by trim. You can go browse by each of those, which is really cool. Let's see, what would you get? Mach-E. That sounds like you.
Yeah, no, I'm a pass on that, dog.
You're a GT fastback kind of guy. Or a dark horse. I can see you getting a dark horse.
I love this. Every time I go in there, the salesperson always loves to use the line, oh, I'm losing money on this car, but I'll I'll do it to stamp one out. And now I can pull this up and call his bluff.
That is
Or her
exactly right, Nick. It really gives the power back to you. Now, before you go shopping for your new car, again, check the market price and the invoice price conditions first at caredge.com/carsinbids. It's a tool that both Nick and I trust and recommend, and it could save you thousands, or at the very least, it'll make you be the most informed person in the showroom. Thanks to CarEdge for sponsoring this episode.
The market report is brought to you by the GMC. No, what do we got? Nick, can you give us a sponsor for the market report, please?
Yes, I got a new keychain that is a manual transmission that you can shift with it and everything.
Oh!
Thanks to Sean, Tip Frog Sean, for the nice gift.
How ironic. Okay, we don't know where that comes from, and they don't pay us, so
Alibaba.
we actually do not support them in any way, and you shouldn't buy that from them. You should buy things from us if we sell products.
You actually, here, this is your keychain, naturally aspirated, it says, Cars and
Oh,
Bids.
this is a better keychain. There you go.
There you go.
Actually, Nick has a Cars and Bids plate frame on the Bentley Arnage.
I do.
It does.
Okay, I want to talk about two things for the market report today. Two things. One of them is Cayenne manuals. Can you pull up Cayenne manuals?
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you a question, Nick. Do you agree with me that in the back of your mind, there was always an exit strategy with cars where it was like, if whatever happens, I could always buy a Cayenne manual? Like, I've always thought to myself, like, if I lose all of my money and at least, and I need one car for my entire life, everything, at least the Cayenne manual is there to be interesting. And that's how I feel. Maybe
I
you
have
haven't
never
this
had
thought.
that exact thought, but sure. It's
Well,
valid.
Well, let me tell you something. It's over. It's all over.
No.
Manual Cayennes are now selling for massive money. The secret is out. People are paying real money for these things. The last 4 we've sold have all been over 25 grand. One was over 35 grand. There was a time when manual Cayennes were not expensive cars. They had gotten cheap. They were all the V6s. Nobody wanted them, et cetera, et cetera. Even if you scroll down through our history,
Yeah,
you
who
can see
specs
some sold in
those?
the low 20s. Some sold even lower than that. Well, here I'm looking for, in 21, we sold one for 17. Like, those days are over. It's done. People want them now. They're buying them. Manual Cayennes are hot.
Wow. Well,
This is a V6.
it is a V6, and you are responsible for most of these cars existing.
I am. Why do Porsche people just love the like special and the interesting
Yeah.
and the exciting and the whatever. But like this 12 that just sold, and the reason I got on this thing, this 12 that just sold at 105,000 mile Cayenne. Remember, this is a V6, just a white Cayenne. If this was not an auto, it'd be like a $9,000 car. And it sold for
Yeah, that's
27,
good
which
money.
is what turbos sell for. What is your GTS worth, Nick? Nick's got a GTS for
Less
this
than
there.
this, for sure.
Yeah, probably.
Similar miles and probably 10 grand less than this. Well, maybe,
Yeah.
10 grand less.
No, probably 18.
at
17.
least 7 less.
Yeah.
And you've got a 420 horsepower V8.
Yeah.
You've got a 40% more horsepower of V8 and all more options.
I kind of want to swap one of these. Like back to an auto.
Interesting. I'm sure you could do that. Anyway, I just wanted to raise the point because it used to be that like mild ones would be deals or low spec ones would be deals. That isn't true anymore. Like the last 3, we sold one that was off-road modified for big money, but the other last 3 we've sold have over 100,000 miles, average specs, and they've all sold for real money.
Isn't automatic generally considered to be better for off-roading?
It depends who you ask.
'Kay.
But nobody's off-roading realistically with a second-gen Cayenne. The first-gen Cayenne was the off-roader.
Yeah.
I mean, look at this. This is a small wheel. Dark blue was a standard color. Beige interior is not all that desired. If this was an automatic, this would be a commodity car.
Yeah.
It's got over 100,000 miles, and it sells for $28,500. Like that's real. You could buy
real
a
money.
Cayman S.
Yeah.
instead of a base model Cayenne. And that's where we are now.
Didn't the X5 of this era also come with a manual?
No, only the original X5 came with a manual.
Gotcha.
Which was from 2000 to like 2006. The second gen X5, they gave it up after that.
That'll
The
be my
X3
backup
came with
plan.
the stick also. But the Cayenne, I'm just astonished by this. I know Porsches are interesting, but to me the car is not interesting other than the manual. But I also want one, so I can't complain that people are.
But it's a
overpaying. I
relatively
understand
unique car. Obviously, it's uncommon, but also it's relatively. If you want a manual SUV, your pool is pretty shallow. There aren't many to pick from, and this of them is the most modern. And and they're also relatively reliable cars. I mean, it's got a lot going for it that makes it appealing. Is it more justifiable? Would I rather have this than a turbo? No, I'd rather have the turbo and give up the manual, I think. But if the conversation starts that I want a manual SUV, well, you know, it's kind of hard to argue with.
Or I'm a Porsche person and I need a family car and I want something interesting because I have a 993 or, you know, so I get that too. And this is way more interesting than just finding like a Cayenne turbo in some unusual color and then going around telling people, oh, it's jet green. It's jet green.
Hey, man,
here's when you actually, like, look at the shift lever. Like, this is actually interesting. So
for 28 though, you can get a Pajero Evo. So, you know, pretty easy decision. Yes.
Yeah, it is an easy decision. Would definitely rather have the Cayenne. Insane person. God. The other thing I want to talk about, Kennan, you follow the E36 M3 sales?
Oh, yes, I have, as a former owner.
Have you seen the recent ones?
It is astonishing to me. The E36 M3 has really been on a run recently.
Okay,
I mean,
we sold that coupe for 27. That convertible, which admittedly is a low mileage purple car, but it's a tip convertible, we sold for 32. Right before that, we sold one for 27. Another one before that for 23. The previous tip convertible for over 30. These cars are making a run. And you know, I've spent some time thinking about this. Why? Why now? And especially because E30 M3s are falling. Have you been watching that market? E30 M3s are off a cliff. And I think that enthusiasts are finally coming around to how cool the E36 M3 is, how drivable it is, how fun it is. And I also think there must be some push in the community to be like, there's not that many nice ones left. I mean, how many E36 M3s got the ratty modification treatment or impacted a pole at 2 a.m. by a guy who was vaping? Like, there was so much of that. There was so much of that. And the good ones left are rare.
Well, yeah. And I also have to say, like, yes, the E36's interior build quality is abhorrent. It's really bad. But the car looks amazing. They're wonderful to drive. They are very reliable cars. Parts availability is still pretty good for most things on this car. I think, and
reliability is a component, like you mentioned. That's something worth mentioning. Probably we feel that it's the most reliable M engine. Don't you agree?
Yeah, because it's not that different to the standard engine. For the U.S. cars, I'm speaking specifically. The Euro cars is a different story.
By the way, that's the other thing that surprised me. I figured that M3 values would rise once the Euro cars became legal, which they now basically all are. They all are. And but it's not the Euro cars that are rising. It's the US cars. I mean, I'm sure the Euro cars are more valuable too, but I'm astonished by this.
I am surprised because in my, you know, like you said, in my memory, this was one of the cars that, like, if something happened to you financially, I can always get an E36 M3 for 10 grand. Well, those days are over.
10 grand, that's what those cars cost. That's what these cars cost in my mind. I bought a nice E36 M345 after college for like 12, stick, white, stock, nice car, couple of dyno parts. Sold it for like 11. That's what they cost in my mind. Well, that's gone. I mean, 30 is the new entry point for like an okay one. It's starting to be.
I sold 25. Mine. It was the first car I ever sold. Yeah, that one. I sold mine for $12,500 back and I bought that car for $6,500 and did some things to it to make it nice and sold it. But like, yeah,
when we started off, I'm scrolling down through. We've managed to already sell 158 E36 M3s. But when we started off, every E36 M3 sold. Here are the numbers: 15, 11, 6, 8, 9,500, 11. That's what they were. And now it's like hard to, like, sub 10 is very, very, very uncommon.
Well, I think exactly like you outlined. Also notice a lot of these are the later production M3s, but like you outlined, I think it's finding one in good condition is rare. Finding one and also the E36 had the best colors, so finding one in a color is significant. I think I just am happy it gets its time in the sun. It's also old enough where it's at that point where people are nostalgically remembering this car. They remember them in high school and they want to have discretionary income. They want to own one, and you're seeing the appreciation as a classic, as a modern classic, I think.
You know what's funny is it's, speaking of sub 10 BMWs, it's actually swapped places with the E63 M6. You can get those. You sold one under 10 the other week. It had like a busted hood and was not in great shape, but they're consistently going for about 10. They used to consistently go in the 20s. So you can now, your bargain BMW is no longer the E36, it's the E63.
Yeah. I mean, the E63 M6 will always be the bargain BMW because it is not
I
a
want
bargain
one.
BMW.
I want one badly.
Okay, we have to move on to questions. Do you understand that? We have to move on to
Questions.
The questions are brought to you by Nick. Nick
I wrote
is
them.
our greatest friend and our worst foe. Now, you can ask us questions. If you go to carsandbids.com and click on the community tab, there will be a post there that says, ask us questions, and you can ask your questions. And we will answer the best ones, not the most upvoted ones, the best ones. And this week we got some interesting questions. I'm going to start with Eli Meyer. Kennan, you're on there. Stay on there because I want to go back to that. I want to show Eli Meyer's picture. Eli Meyer says, hey, Doug, not a typical question, but have you seen the B9 Tribeca limousine? It's for sale in Massachusetts for $9,000. I'm going to tell you the story about this car. This is interesting. It just popped up for sale again, and it pops up every so often. And here's the deal. Automakers globally, but in the United States, are generally their own distributors, which means that like Mercedes-Benz is the distributor. Mercedes-Benz has a U.S. arm that is the distributor for Mercedes-Benz Europe. So Mercedes-Benz Europe sends the cars to Mercedes-Benz USA, is what it's called, MBUSA, and they distribute the car to the dealers. And generally speaking, automakers control that entire supply chain process. There are two exceptions. Toyota does not own their distributorship in the southeastern United States. There's a company called Southeast Toyota that distributes Toyotas and is not part of Toyota, and they are the ones that distribute Toyota products to the U.S. And the fellow who started that's a guy named Jim Moran, and he is richer than God. He's dead, but he's richer than God.
This is not where I expected this to go.
The other exception is Subaru. In the Northeast, Subaru does not have their own distribution. Subaru has a company that does their distribution. And the guy who ran the company that does Subaru Northeast distribution had a B9 Tribeca limousine made for himself to go and visit his dealerships back when the B9 Tribeca was a new car. And so he would get in the B9 Tribeca limo. This is all true, and be driven around to the dealerships, and he'd show up at the dealership with B9 Tribeca limo. Now, obviously, the car's 15, 20 years old now. You know, it's not even in production anymore. So he sold the limo on, and every so often it comes up for sale. And whenever it comes up, it always is in New England because that's where it initially was. And so you have an opportunity to buy into Subaru royalty if you want to buy this B9 Tribeca limo for $9,000. Then there's the story behind that car. Kennan, are you interested?
At a deep buy here, pay here used car lot in Massachusetts. Wow, how the mighty have fallen, you know?
Imagine trading that in. Like, how would you value the trade-in?
I guarantee it was an auto auction, and they're like, so we have to have this. Like, I'm sure that's how it
That
happened.
belongs on Cars and Bids. The dealer that has that doesn't know about Cars and Bids, but by God, they should. That needs to be on Cars and Bids. And they're asking $9,000, and I got to tell you, that's worth every penny of $6,200. So anyway, that's the B9 Tribeca limo. The last time it came up, I heard the whole story from someone at Subaru, and this is now I've told the story to you.
It's a great
next
story.
question from Super M3 GTR 1721. Do you think Toyota in the future will regret making the new Land Cruiser undesirable, or will the Land Cruiser name and status be fine? I think about this a lot.
Yes, next question.
They might regret it. Like they have cheapened the Land Cruiser brand in the United States for a new generation, which is going to last for a long time based on how long Toyota truck generations last. And I wouldn't be entirely surprised if they do regret it if they ever wanted to try to come out with the Land Cruiser as a premium product ever again. It is very unusual when you have buyers at a certain price point and then you kind of drop to a lower price point and say goodbye to those buyers without really a great option for them. So some of us bought Sequoias and
suffer with those camo fender flares.
some of us are just trying to make do with a 21 Land Cruiser, and that's
I feel like it does break my heart too, because I think it looks nice. Like I like the idea of it. And then we rode around in that press car you got, and it was just like, it was so disappointing. And you're like, I would have actually considered buying one based on how it looks, and then based on how it drives, you're like, nope, I'm
it's just
out.
kind of mediocre, and the 4Runner is just so much more appealing. Although Nick's got a personal story about the 4Runner, he can tell us now.
I do.
You have a personal story about the new 4Runner. Tell us.
My friend who had the Transblow. Yeah. She got it early. She's a single lady. got a lot of attention from the males. It's a good strategy there. If
It's a
you're
good strategy.
over Tinder and all the dating apps, just get a new 4Runner and go to the dog beach. That's not the story, though. The story is that about 2 weeks in, the transmission just completely gave out. Have to replace the transmission. So she brought it back to the local Toyota dealership and is now presumably in a Corolla or whatever they gave her.
This is still ongoing?
I think she got it back now, but it was, I mean, they didn't just have like a new 4Runner trans lying around. It was a couple weeks.
That's interesting. I mean, you told me that, and I think about that a lot because it highlights, there's this superstition in the automotive world, don't buy the first model year and all that. And, I think of that as superstition, and I think it's kind of silly, but then you hear a lot of anecdotes that seem to back it up.
No, that's, I mean, my dad had first year Touareg, a Volkswagen Touareg in the US, rough.
The worst one.
He replaced it with a first year X-Type Jaguar. Not good. There was one other that he did, and he was like, all right, I'm off this. Like, there's something to it.
Yeah, there is something to it. That 400 thing, I wonder if that's a problem that other people are having. But regardless, I do wonder if Toyota one day will wish they had kept the Land Cruiser as the premium product. If the current Sequoia had been branded as Land Cruiser, I have a suspicion it would be more exciting to people.
The whole product strategy here is so weird with it. It's the Prado here, and like, why are you guys doing this? This is simple.
Because
You're
they
making
had
it unnecessarily complicated, and just like do the obvious choice here. That's all.
I think they did it because they had the car. They were already selling the Land Cruiser Prado overseas. And rather than develop a US specific model, they just were like, let's call it the Land Cruiser and bring it back to the States. The problem is they had been doing that with the GX already. Yeah. And so now those two cars are very identical. And meanwhile, we always got the 4Runner, which markets that got the Land Cruiser Prado did not get the 4Runner. And so those two cars compete. And it really doesn't make a lot of sense. They're selling the Land Cruisers. They seem to be doing fine. I have a suspicion it's going to hurt 4Runner sales, though. And I don't know. It's not what it once was. I'd be happy to give him 90 grand to buy another Land Cruiser, but not 120 to buy a Lexus LX. Am I right, Kennan?
That's exactly right.
Next question. This one's for Kennan, although it's asked to me. Henry HH490. Would Doug review an F1 car if he ever got the chance to? If he was invited to the Las Vegas Grand Prix or Circuit of the Americas by a team? Kennan?
There are no tracks in San Diego, so no. No, I can't see him ever reviewing a Formula One car because for a number of reasons. One, I truly don't believe you would fit. Two, I don't think the quirks and features are all that interesting to you. I don't think you'd find you would like the drink button on the steering wheel. I think you'd find that to be novel. Yeah, but I don't see you doing a Formula One car. I've done a Formula One car.
You would do one?
I did one.
Well, you did that rolling chassis, but would you do it really?
No, that's the other thing. Driving it is like the Richard Hammond video he did many years ago on Top Gear of driving the Fernando Alonso's World Championship Renault. Shows how difficult that car is to drive. Like they're very difficult.
I don't think that I saw the very realistic F1 movie last week.
Right.
You can be a 53-year-old washed up vagrant basically. And not just get in the car and drive with no training or practice, but pass 10, 20 cars a lap. They're pretty easy. It's point and shoot.
This is a movie spoiler, folks. In the movie, a 53-year-old washed up vagrant, as Nick said, is going to pass 20 cars. Vegas. For God's sake. Now you've already seen the film.
Well, I think you assume that the good guy wins here and passes people occasionally. If he just was DFL in every race, it wouldn't be a very good movie. But sure, yes, some spoiler right there.
DNF? Ken, am I missing something here?
Dead effing last, I think, is exactly what he is.
That's a Formula One. That's a Formula One technical term.
Yeah, I think I heard Martin Brundle say that
from
once.
Sailboat racing, but I presume most sports use this terminology.
Right. Yeah. Okay. But am I correct in my assumption here? I don't think a Formula One car is on your list.
I'm not that. I don't have a lot of personal interest. I would do it because I think people would watch it, but personally, I'm not interested. Now, I will say, I was not interested in doing the P1 GTR, and then I did the P1 GTR, and it changed my life. And now I want a P1 GTR.
I don't think you would want a Formula One car.
What about a Formula One derived engine, like a V10 from Footwork?
I do have in my car, I have a Porsche that has a Formula One engine.
Oh, really? Tell us more.
It's a Carrera GT, and they developed the powertrain for Formula One. Although, do you know, the Porsche is now doing all this Carrera GT stuff. They refuse to admit that.
Because they're right. They know the facts.
No, the fact is the motor was developed for Formula One, but what happened was they were a losing team. Their cars were the engines were having horrible problems.
Right.
They got fired, and so they don't want to talk about that.
Right.
So
And if it had competed in Formula One, it wouldn't have been. It would have come DFL, as he said, and
well, it would have DNF. That would have it actually would have.
I think it would have DNS'd.
When they did, yeah, maybe, because when they did compete, like at the storied Phoenix Grand Prix, which you guys remember,
It was testing. It wasn't even there wasn't a race.
No, they raced. So remember, they were an engine supplier before. The V10 was going to be for the next year, and Footwork was like, "Look, your engines are so crappy," because they had used them for a few years.
Yes.
They're like, "Your engines are so crappy, you're out." And Porsche had already developed the engine, which then went unchanged into the Carrera GT.
Well, it went to be used in Le Mans, right? And then the rules changed. Then they couldn't use it. And then they're like, "What are we going to do with this? Put it in the Carrera GT." And then somehow it made more power than it did in either of the
That's right.
iterations.
And that is the great story of the engine. It was a Formula One engine, then it became a Le Mans engine, and it got the most power in the road car. Take that, Nick. Okay, next question. Nick, this is a question for you, even though it's being asked to me. By Rider17, if the LM002 was more reliable, would Doug have gotten it over the G-Cab? Nick, what do you think?
Ooh, probably. I think Doug and I both agree in the SUV hierarchy, the Bentley Dominator is number one. The LM002 is number two. Everything else, maybe B9 Tribeca Limousine number three. Everything else, DFL, as we like to say here. So, yes, I do think if the LM002 was a little cheaper, a little bit more reliable, I think it would have, like right now it's just a cult following. Very few people know about it and desire it. And it's stupid expensive because it was the production values were so small. But like, I am just champing at the bit to buy one.
Well, let me
I wish
ask
I
you
could.
about that, Nick. By the way, the answer to this question for me is actually no. It's not about the reliability. It's just too in your face. I live in this community. I would be shunned. But
no
Nick,
one would be mistaking it for the other G cab and sticking the wrong key in and taking it home. Like you would be a man of taste with this car.
But Nick, you've talked about this before. Getting one of these. Is this still on the table?
They pop up with some regularity, like way more than an F1, anyways. They always have insane ass to them, and I think that they sit for a long, long time, and then the dealers are just full of bravado that it's worth. I know what I got.
There's
even
always
worse
been
than me.
this thought that these are going to appreciate a lot more than than actual transactions show that they have.
It's kind of like it's everything wrong with the H1 meets everything wrong with the Countach. Like it's not a good driving experience, but by God, is it cool? I can't
It's
think
so
of a
cool.
neater SUV.
Right. Doug, I would have thought your appreciation would have grown for it now that you have a Countach. Like, I think that it feels like,
You know what I will say, though? I'm a big fan of getting different experiences, and that's why I have 3 mid-engine, 2-seater exotic sports cars. No, but they are very different experiences, the 3 that I have. And the LM, I think, would have a lot of the Countach experience without a lot of the fun.
Yeah.
I would love it if someone in my orbit had one. They're very uncommon. A buddy of mine saw one in Austria a couple of weeks ago and sent me a picture. It had broken down.
surprise.
Okay.
Surprise.
Next question. Oh, here's a good one from X-Ray 48. Doug, did you have to film the Escalade IQ video outside because it was too heavy for the Cars and Bids elevator? Kennan?
Yes. I believe that is correct because our elevator capacity is 7,000 pounds, I believe. So
Our elevator capacity is 7,000 pounds, which means that I have absolutely no qualms about taking an 8,200-pound car down it, but that's it. Now, Kennan wouldn't go on, if the listed weight is 7,101, Kennan would be like,
well, yes, like the Cybertruck, the Cyber Beast weighs 6,800 pounds, and I weigh about 200 pounds. So I would get out of the car, send it down, come walk all the way around, get it, pull it off. That's exactly what I would do. It's a capacity rating for a reason. And do you want to test it? I don't.
Yeah, needless
Rules are
to
rules.
say, I don't buy any of those capacity ratings. I think they're all BS. But that Escalade at a ton more than the capacity.
That's a bit.
Even for me. So yes, and it's not just the Escalade. That Navigator, it's also a length problem. We have a length problem. The Cybertruck can fit, but if you look way back, the Silverado EV. And the what was the other one? The Hummer SUV EV, and there's a few big pickups and stuff I have to still review outside. And it sucks because when I review the cars, Kennan is sitting right there.
I am there.
I'll look up from the review, and I'm just sitting there filming, working, and I'll say, Kennan, the Ferrari 456, and we'll talk about the 456 for about 5 minutes.
That's true. Or you will yell at Filippo for something that he didn't do. Something like that. We were talking about that today. The chaos ensues. He blinds me with the headlights when he comes in to make sure they work.
Or something that he did do. But regardless, there's a lot of complaints to Filippo. Yeah. And he just lets them all roll off his back at this point because he knows none of them matter. Now, you want to know a story about my filming location? We'll end it on this. My outdoor filming location. There is an old couple. My outdoor filming location is near a verdant hillside and a creek. And there is an old couple who walks there. And they're the only other people who ever show up. It's just me filming my videos and the old couple. And so I will show up there with these cars, and they don't care at all about cars. And so they know nothing. They have zero interest. That we talk about like the birds and the deer that we sometimes see, or the animals that we sometimes see at the location. And they ask about my kids, and I ask about their kids, and that's that. And so I'll show up with the McLaren Elva. Right? And they'll just walk up and be like, "Oh, hey Doug, nice to see you. How are your kids?" And I'm like, "This car costs $3 million." And they'll be like, "Oh, it's great. So how's the creek doing?" And that's the old couple at my filming location.
There's also
you can see them in the background of some of the shots sometimes.
That's true. I've recently went there to film stuff for our photo guide because it is a very peaceful place to go and do that. And there is another person. There's another character. There's a guy who shows up in a Hyundai and then just disappears. He walks up and I hypothesize that he goes into the upside down, or there's some portal to another world that's near there, because he just
there were a few sketchy people in that location as well. Yes. And actually, that's one of the reasons one day I showed up and there were 3 cop cars. I was showed up like 8 a.m. I'm like, I don't know.
Oh.
It's pretty private. Okay, is that our last question? We have time for one more question. Philippe, this is for Nick. Last question. This is for Nick.
Right.
Nick from Emiston 4757. What's the most stressed you've been running cars and bids, not including the start of the business? Now, Nick, you didn't ever run cars and bids, and you've never been an employee. Tell us what the most stressed you've been at cars and bids was.
Today, before the podcast, we placed a lunch order, and it was sandwiches. And they had 3 sandwiches that all looked really good.
No, I know what it was. The most stressed you've ever been was Perry's 996 when you were the high bidder.
No, there's been a few. No, the underbidder for the B5 RS4 at like 85, which was about 30 grand more than it was worth.
Hey, by the way,
this one, right?
By the way, the other one is coming back. If you're interested.
I'm a potential bidder, so don't.
The one in Connecticut is coming back.
But actually, the most stressed I've been, we did the big adventure challenge series, and I have a limited attention span. We've been going for hours filming. It's kind of exhausting. We get to this thing, everyone's talking, chit-chat, and have a great time, and someone whispered in the opposite direction, "Hey, Nick, follow the camera car." I didn't hear it. Allegedly, it was said.
We were all stopped in a circle.
The camera car takes off like there's a fire,
we were
bolting it.
Stopped in a circle having a production meeting where one person was telling the rest of us what to do. But anyway,
and he even said, "Okay, does everyone understand?" And we all went, "Yes," including you.
Yeah, I didn't process any of that. Sean does a Le Mans start, gets into the camera car, flips me off, goes down a runway street the wrong way. I got a little flustered. I might have said some mean things to Sean over the radio about how his directions were too confusing. And then everyone made fun of me because the instructions were to follow the leader, and that you had some analogy with the train.
Yes, yes, he was like, "I can't believe this. It's so difficult. I have to follow the leader." I said, "Yeah, that is like the coal tender on a steam locomotive complaining that it's so difficult to follow the train. Stay behind it."
But it was even better than that, because Nick was like, "I can't believe you're making me lead." And we were like, "Nick, nobody is making you lead. You're following the camera car. That would be like the call tender saying, "Why are they making me lead the train?"
God, that's exactly
That
what.
was a really fun 2 days, but yeah, that
That's
was the most stressed I've been at Cars and Bits.
That's the only moment that happened off camera. I really wish we had on camera because it's so good.
Kennan, do you have a stressful moment?
Yeah, a lot of it. That first week was pretty rough. The first several months were a lot of work. I did a stint that I worked 7 days a week. It was 10 to 12 hours a day, 7 days a week for 7 weeks. It was a long time. But in the end,
still does that.
and Filippo, Filippo is like his idea of heaven. That's how he falls asleep. He works and once productivity has been achieved, or his optimal level of productivity achieved for the day, he closes his laptop, checks his phone on Slack one more time, and then puts on charger and wakes up. And the first thing he does is check his phone. Doesn't say hello to his wife, checks his phone.
He's now having a penne pasta
Happy
shower.
birthday, Filippo.
Penne pasta shower. Nick, always love you.
Followed by Slack
And,
checking. Nick, a pleasure.
Thank you for participating, Nick. It's been a pleasure. Here is a Notre Dame Irish golf tee. I'm going to give this to you, Nick, as a thank you.
Sick.
And remember, you can watch our podcast again right here next week at all the places where you watch podcasts. And Filippo will be back, and Nick will be excommunicated.
Best
Kennan,
podcast we've ever done.
Do you have any parting thoughts on the Jeff Bezos wedding before we go?
Yoy. That's my thought.
Okay, none.
I wasn't there.
It was car free. It was car free. All right, goodbye, everybody. Thank you for watching.
Goodbye.